This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joseph Early. The Aeneid by Publius Virgilius Maro. Translated by John Dryden. Book 1. A Fateful Haven. Part 2. Thus Venus. Thus her son replied again: None of your sisters have we seen or heard, O Virgin, or what other name you bear above that style. O more than mortal fair, your voice and mien celestial birth betray. If, as you seem, the daughter of the day, or one at least of chaste Diana's train, let not an humble suppliant sue in vain, but tell a stranger, long in tempest tossed, what earth we tread, and who commands the coast. Then on your name shall wretched mortals call, and offer'd victims at your altars fall. I dare not, she replied, assume the name of goddess, or celestial honours claim. For Tyrian virgins bows and quivers bear, and purple buskins o'er their ankles wear. No, gentle youth, in Libyan lands you are, a people rude in peace and rough in war. The rising city, which from far you see, is Carthage, an Tyrian colony. Phoenician Dido rules the growing state, who fled from Tyre to shun her brother's hate. Great were her wrongs, her story full of fate, which I will sum in short. Sichaeus, known for wealth, and brother to the Punic throne, possess'd fair Dido's bed, and either heart at once was wounded with an equal dart. Her father gave her, yet a spotless maid, Pygmalion, then the Tyrian scepter sway'd, one who condemn'd divine and human law. Then strife ensued, and cursed gold the cause. The monarch, blinded by desire of wealth, with steel invades his brother's life by stealth. Before the sacred altar made him bleed, and long from her conceal'd the cruel deed. Some tale, some new pretence he daily coin'd, to soothe his sister and delude her mind. At last, in dead of night, the ghost appears of her unhappy lord. The spectre stared, and, with erected eyes, his bloody bosom bares. The cruel altars and his fate he tells, and the dire secret of his house reveals. Then warns the widow with her household gods to seek a refuge in remote abodes. Last, to support her in so long a way, he shows her where his hidden treasure lay. Admonish'd thus, and seiz'd with mortal fright, the queen provides companions of her flight. They meet, and all combine to leave the state, who hate the tyrant, or who fear his hate. They seize a fleet, which ready rigg'd they find, nor is Pygmalion's treasure left behind. The vessels, heavy laden, put to sea. With prosperous winds a woman leads the way. I know not if by stress of weather driven, or was their fatal course disposed by heav'n. At last they landed, where from far your eyes may view the turrets of new Carthage rise. There bought a space of ground, which Brysa call'd from the bull's hide, they first enclos'd and wall'd. But whence are you? What country claims your birth? What seek you, strangers, on our Libyan earth? To whom, with sorrow streaming from his eyes, and deeply sighing, thus her son replies: Could you with patience hear, or I relate, O nymph, the tedious annals of our fate, Thro' such a train of woes if I should run, The day would sooner than the tale be done. From ancient Troy, by force expell'd, we came, If you by chance have heard the Trojan name. On various seas by various tempests toss'd, At length we landed on your Libyan coast. The good Aeneas I am call'd, a name, While fortune favour'd, not unknown to fame. My household gods, companions of my woes, With pious care I rescued from our foes. To fruitful Italy my course was bent, And from the King of Heav'n is my descent. With twice 10 sails I cross'd the Phrygian sea; Fate and my mother goddess led my way. Scarce 7 the thin remainders of my fate, From storms preserv'd, within your harbour meet. Myself distress'd, an exile and unknown, Debarr'd from Europe and from Asia thrown, In Libyan deserts wander thus alone. His tender parent could no longer bear, But interposing, sought to soothe his care. Whoe'er you are, not unbelov'd by Heav'n, Since on our friendly shore your ships are driv'n, Have courage; to the gods permit the rest, And to the queen expose your just request. Now take this earnest of success, for more: Your scatter'd fleet is join'd upon the shore; The winds are chang'd, your friends from danger free, Or I renounce my skill in augury. 12 swans behold in beauteous order move, And stoop with closing pinions from above, Whom late the bird of Jove had driv'n along. And tho' the clouds pursued the scattering throng, Now, all united in a goodly team, They skim the ground, and seek the quiet stream. As they, with joy returning, clap their wings, And ride the circuit of the skies in rings. Not otherwise your ships and ev'ry friend Already hold the port, or with swift sails descend. No more advice is needful, but pursue The path before you, and the town in view." Thus having said, she turn'd, and made appear Her neck refulgent, and dishevel'd hair, Which flowing from her shoulders reach'd the ground, And widely spread ambrosial scents around. In length of train descends her sweeping gown, And by her graceful walk the Queen of Love is known. The prince pursued the parting deity with words like these: "Ah, whither do you fly, unkind and cruel, To deceive your son in borrow'd shapes, And his embrace to shun? Never to bless my sight but thus unknown, And still to speak in accents not your own." Against the goddess these complaints he made, But took the path, and her commands obey'd. They march obscure, for Venus kindly shrouds With mist their persons, and involves in clouds, That, thus unseen, their passage none might stay, Or force to tell the causes of their way. This part perform'd, the goddess flies sublime, To visit Paphos and her native clime, Where garlands evergreen and fair With vows are offer'd, and with solemn prayer. 100 altars in her temple smoke, 1,000 bleeding hearts her power invoke. They climb the next ascent, and looking down Now at a nearer distance view the town. The prince with wonder sees the stately towers, Which late were huts and shepherds' homely bowers, The gates and streets, and hears, from ev'ry part, The noise and busy concourse of the mart. The toiling Tyrians on each other call, To ply the labour; some extend the wall, Some build a citadel, the brawny throng, Or dig or push unwieldy stones along. Some for their dwellings choose a spot of ground, Which, first design'd, with ditches they surround. Some laws ordain, and some attend the choice of holy senates, and elect by voice. Here some design a mole, while others there lay deep foundations for a theatre. From marble quarries mighty columns hew, for ornaments of scene and future view. Such is their toil, and such their busy pains, as exercise the bees in flowery plains. When winter past, and summer scarce begun, invites them forth to labour in the sun. Some lead their youth abroad, while some condense their liquid store, and some in cells dispense. Some at the gate stand ready to receive the golden burden, and their friends relieve. All with united force combine to drive the lazy drones from the laborious hive. With envy stung, they view each other's deeds; the fragrant work with diligence proceeds. Thrice happy you, whose walls already rise, Aeneid said, and view'd with lifted eyes their lofty towers. Then, entering at the gate, conceal'd in clouds prodigious to relate, he mix'd unmark'd among the busy throng, borne by the tide, and pass'd unseen along. Full in the centre of the town there stood, thick set with trees, a venerable wood. The Tyrians landed near this holy ground, and digging here a prosperous omen found. From under earth a courser's head they drew, their growth and fortune to foreshew. This fate did sign their foundress Juno gave, of a soil fruitful and a people brave. Sidonian Dido here with solemn state did Juno's temple build and consecrate, enrich'd with gift, and with a golden shrine. But more the goddess made the place divine. On brazen steps the marble threshold rose, and brazen plates the cedar beams enclose. The rafters are with brazen coverings crown'd, the lofty doors on brazen hinges sound. When first Aeneas this place beheld, reviv'd his courage, and his fear expell'd. For while, expecting there the queen, he rais'd his wond'ring eyes, and round the temple gazed, admir'd the fortune of the rising town, the striving artists, and their arts renown. He saw in order painted on the wall whatever did unhappy Troy befall. The wars that fame around the world had blown, all to the life and every leader known. There Agamemnon, Priam here he spies, and fierce Achilles, who both kings defies. He stopp'd, and weeping said, "O friend, ev'n here the monuments of Trojan woes appear. Our known disaster fill even foreign lands. See here, where old unhappy Priam stands, even the mute walls relate the warrior's fame, and Trojan griefs the Tyrians' pity claim." He said, his tears a ready passage find, devouring what he saw so well design'd, and with an empty picture fed his mind. For there he saw the fainting Grecians yield, and here the trembling Trojans quit the field, pursued by fierce Achilles through the plain, on his high chariot driving o'er the slain. The tents of Rhesus next his grief renew, by their white sails betray'd to nightly view, and wakeful Diomed, whose cruel sword the sentries slew, nor spared their slumbering lord, then took the fiery steeds, ere yet the food of Troy they taste, or drink the Xanthian flood. Elsewhere he saw where Troilus defied Achilles, and unequal combat tried. Then, where boy disarm'd with loosen'd reins was by his horses hurried o'er the plains, hung by the neck and hair, and dragg'd around, with hostile spear yet sticking in his wound, with tracks of blood inscribed the dusty ground. Meantime the Trojan dames, oppress'd with woe, to Pallas fain in long procession go, in hopes to reconcile their heav'nly foe. they beat their breasts, they rend their hair, then rich embroider'd vests for presents bear. But the stern goddess stands unmov'd with prayer. Thrice round the Trojan walls Achilles drew the corpse of Hector, whom in fight he slew. Here Priam sues, and there for sums of gold the lifeless body of his son is sold. So sad an object, and so well express'd, drew sighs and groans from the griev'd hero's breast. To see the figure of his lifeless friend, and his old sire his helpless hand extend. Himself he saw among the Grecian train, mix'd in the bloody battle on the plain. And swarthy Memnon in his arms he knew, his pompous ensigns and his Indian crew. Penthesilea there with haughty grace leads to the wars an Amazonian race. In their right hands a pointed dart they wield, the left forward sustains the lunar shield. Athwart her breast a golden belt she throws, amid the press alone provokes 1,000 foes. Dares her maiden arms to manly force oppose. Thus, while the Trojan prince employs his eyes fix'd on the walls with wonder and surprise, the beauteous Dido with a numerous train and pomp of gods descends the sacred fane. Such on Eurota's banks or Cynthus' height Diana seems, and so she charms the sight. When in the dance the graceful goddess leads the choir of nymphs, and o'ertops their heads. Known by her quiver and her lofty mien, she walks majestic, and she looks their queen. Latona sees her shine above the rest, and feeds with secret joy her silent breast. Such Dido was. With such becoming state amidst the crowd she walks serenely great. Their labour to her future sway she speeds, and passing with a gracious glance proceeds. Then mounts the throne, high placed before the shrine. In crowds around the swarming people join. She takes petitions, and dispenses laws, hears and determines every private cause. Their tasks in equal portions she divides, and, where unequal, there by lot decides. Another way, by chance, Aeneas bends his eyes, and unexpected sees his friend, Antheus, Sergestus grave, Cloanthus strong, and at their backs a mighty Trojan throng, whom late the tempest on the billows toss'd, and widely scatter'd on another coast. The prince, unseen, surpris'd, with wonder stands, and longs with joyful haste to join their hands. But, doubtful of the wish'd event, he stays, and from the hollow cloud his friends surveys. Impatient till they told their present state, and where they left their ships, and what their fate, why they came, and what was their request. For these were sent, commission'd by the rest, to sue for leave to land the sickly men, and gain admission to the gracious queen. Entering, with cries they fill'd the holy fane, and thus with lowly voice Ilioneus began. O queen, indulged by favour of the gods to found an empire in these new abodes, to build a town with statutes to restrain the wild inhabitants beneath thy reign, we, wretched Trojans, toss'd on every shore from sea to sea, thy clemency implore. Forbid the fires our shipping to deface, receive th' unhappy fugitives to grace, and spare the remnant of a pious race. We come not with design of wasteful prey, to drive the country, force the swains away. Nor such our strength, nor such is our desire. The vanquish'd dare not to such thoughts aspire. A land there is, Hesperia nam'd of old. The soil is fruitful, and the men are bold. Th' only Trians held it once by common fame, now call'd Italia from the leader's name. To that sweet region was our voyage bent, when winds and every warring element disturb'd our course, and, far from sight of land, cast our torn vessels on the moving sand. The sea came on; the south with mighty roar dispers'd and dash'd the rest upon the rocky shore. These few you see escape the storm, and fear, unless you interpose, a shipwreck here. What men, what monsters, what inhuman race, what laws, what barbarous customs of the place, shut up in a desert's shore to drowning men, and drive us to the cruel seas again? If our hard fortune no compassion draws, nor hospitable rites, nor human laws, the gods are just, and will revenge our cause. Aeneas was our prince; a juster lord or nobler warrior never drew a sword. Observant of the right, religious of his word, if yet he lives and draws this vital air, nor we, his friends, of safety shall despair. Nor you, great queen, these offices repent, which he will equal and perhaps augment. We want not cities, nor Sicilian coasts, where King Acestes' Trojan lineage boasts. Permit our ships a shelter on your shores, refitted from your woods with planks and oars, that, if our prince be safe, we may renew our destined course, and Italy pursue. But if, O best of men, the fates ordain that you art swallow'd in the Libyan main, and if our young Iulus be no more, dismiss our navy from your friendly shore, that we to good Acestes may return, and with our friends our common losses mourn." Thus spoke Ilioneus. The Trojan crew, with cries and clamours, his request renew. The modest queen awhile, with downcast eyes, ponder'd the speech, then briefly thus replied: "Trojans, dismiss your fears. My cruel fate, and doubts attending an unsettled state, force me to guard my coast from foreign foes. Who has not heard the story of your woes, the name and fortune of your native place, the fame and valour of the Phrygian race? We Tyrians are not so devoid of sense, nor so remote from Phoebus' influence. Whether to Latian shores your course is bent, or, driven by tempests from your first intent, you seek the good Acestes' government, your men shall be received, your fleet repair'd, and sail with ships to convoy for your god. Or would you stay, and join your friendly powers to raise and to defend Tyrian towers? My wealth, my city, and myself are yours. And would to heav'n the storm you felt would bring on Carthaginian coasts your wand'ring king! My people shall, by my command, explore the ports and creeks of every winding shore, and towns, and wilds, and shady woods, in quest of so renown'd and so desir'd a guest." Rais'd in his mind, the Trojan hero stood, and long'd to break out from his ambient cloud. Achates found it, and thus urg'd his way: "From whence, O goddess born, this long delay? What more can you desire? Your welcome sure, your fleet in safety, and your friends secure. One only wants, and him we saw in vain oppose the storm, and swallow'd in the main. Orontes in his fate our forfeit paid. The rest agrees with what your mother said." Scarce had he spoken, when the cloud gave way, the mists flew upward, and dissolv'd in day. The Trojan chief appear'd in open sight, august in visage, and serenely bright. His mother goddess, with her hands divine, had form'd his curling locks, and made his temples shine, and giv'n his rolling eyes a sparkling grace, and breath'd a youthful vigour on his face. Like polish'd ivory, beauteous to behold, of Parian marble when encas'd in gold. Thus radiant from the circling cloud he broke, and thus with manly modesty he spoke: He whom you seek am I, by tempest toss'd, and sav'd from shipwreck on your Libyan coast, presenting a gracious queen before your throne, a prince that owes his life to you alone. Fair majesty, the refuge and redress of those whom fate pursues and wants oppress, you who our pious offices employ to save the relics of abandoned Troy, receive the shipwreck'd on your friendly shore, with hospitable rites relieve the poor. Associate in your town a wandering train, and strangers in your palace entertain. What thanks can wretched fugitives return, who scatter'd through the world in exile mourn? The gods, if gods to goodness are inclined, if acts of mercy touch their heav'nly mind, and more than all their gods your generous heart, conscious of worth, requite its own desert. In you this age is happy, and this earth, and parents more than mortal gave you birth. While rolling rivers into seas shall run, and round the space of heav'n the radiant sun, while trees the mountain tops with shade supply, your honour, name, and praise shall never die. Whate'er abode my fortune has assign'd, your image shall be present in my mind. Thus having said, he turn'd with pious haste, and joyful his expecting friends embraced. With his right hand Ilioneus was grac'd, Serestus with his left; then to his breast Cloanthus thus, and the noble Gyas press'd, and so by turns descended to the rest. The Tyrian queen stood fix'd upon his face, pleas'd with his motions, ravish'd with his grace, admir'd his fortunes, more admir'd the man, then recollected stood, and thus began. What fate, O goddess born, what angry pow'rs have cast you shipwreck'd on our barren shores? Are you the great Aeneas, known to fame, who from celestial seed your lineage claim? The same Aeneas whom fair Venus bore to fam'd Anchises on the Idaean shore? It calls unto my mind, though then a child, when Teucer came, from Salamis exil'd, and sought my father's aid to be restor'd. My father Belus then, with fire and sword, invaded Cyprus, made the region bare, and conquering, finish'd the successful war. From him the Trojan seas I understood, the Grecian chiefs, and your illustrious blood. Your foe himself the Dardan valour prais'd, and his own ancestry from Trojans raised. Enter, my noble guest, and you shall find, if not a costly welcome, yet a kind. I, for myself, like you, have been distress'd, till Heav'n afforded me this place of rest. Like you, an alien in a land unknown, I learn'd to pity woes so like my own. She said, and to the palace led her guest, then offer'd incense and proclaim'd a feast. Nor yet less careful for her absent friends, twice 10 fat oxen to the ship she sends, besides 100 boars and 100 lambs, with bleating cries attend their milky dams. And jars of generous wine in spacious bowls she gives, cheer the sailors' drooping souls. Now purple hangings clothe the palace walls, and sumptuous feasts are made in splendid hall. On Tyrian carpets richly wrought they dine, with loads of massy plate the sideboards shine, and antique vases all of gold emboss'd, the gold itself inferior to the cost. Of curious work whereon the sides were seen the fights and figures of illustrious men, from their first founder to the present queen. The good Aeneas' paternal care Iulus' absence could no longer bear, dispatch'd Achates to the ships in haste, to give a glad relation of the past, and, fraught with precious gifts, to bring the boy, snatch'd from the ruins of unhappy Troy, a robe of tissue stiff with golden wire, and up a vest, once Helen's rich attire. from Argos by the fam'd adulteress brought, with golden flowers and winding foliage wrought. Her mother Leda's present, when she came to ruin Troy and set the world on flame. The scepter Priam's eldest daughter bore, her orient necklace, and the crown she wore. Of double texture, glorious to behold, one order set with gems, and one with gold. Instructed this, the wise Achates goes, and in his diligence his duty show'd. But Venus, anxious for her son's affairs, new counsels tries, and new designs prepares, that Cupid should assume the shape and face of sweet Ascanius, and the sprightly grace should bring presents in her nephew's stead, and in Eliza's veins the gentle poison shed. For much she fear'd the Tyrians' double tongue, and knew the town to Juno's care belong'd. These thoughts by night her golden slumbers broke, and thus alarm'd to winged love she spoke: "My son, my strength, whose mighty pow'r alone Controls the Thund'rer on his awful throne, to thee thy much afflicted mother flies, And on thy succour and thy faith relies. Thou know'st, my son, how Jove's revengeful wife By force and fraud attempts thy brother's life; And often hast thou mourn'd with me his pains. Him Dido now with blandishment detains, But I suspect the town where Juno reigns. For this 'tis needful to prevent her art, And fire with love the proud Phoenician's heart; A love so violent, so strong, so sure, As neither age can change, nor art can cure. How this may be perform'd, now take my mind. Ascanius by his father is design'd to come with presents laden from the port, To gratify the queen and gain the court. I mean to plunge the boy in pleasing sleep, And ravish'd in Idalian bow'rs to keep, On high Cythera, that the sweet deceit May pass unseen, and none prevent the cheat. Take thou his form and shape, I beg the grace, But only for a night's revolving space. Thyself a boy, assume a boy's dissembled face, That when, amidst the fervour of the feast, The Tyrian hugs and fonds thee on her breast, And with sweet kisses in her arms constrain, Thou mayst infuse thy venom in her veins. The god of love obeys, and sets aside His bow and quiver, and his plumy pride. He walks Iulus in his mother's sight, And in the sweet resemblance takes delight. The goddess then to young Ascanius flies, And in a pleasing slumber seals his eyes. Lull'd in her lap amidst a train of loves, She gently bears him to her blissful groves; Then with a wreath of myrtle crowns his head, And softly lays him in a flow'ry bed. Cupid meantime assum'd his form and face, Following Achates with a shorter pace, And brought the gifts. The queen already sate amid the Trojan lords in shining state. High on a golden bed her princely guest Was next her side, in order sate the rest. Then canisters with bread are heap'd on high, The attendants water for their hands supply, And, having wash'd, with silken towels dry. Next 50 handmaids in long order bore The censers, and with fumes the gods adore. Then youths, and virgins twice as many, join To place the dishes, and to serve the wine. The Tyrian train, admitted to the feast, Approach, and on the painted couches rest. All on the Trojans' gifts with wonder gaze, But view the beauteous boy with more amaze. His rosy colour'd cheeks, his radiant eyes, His motions, voice, and shape, and all the gods disguise. Nor pass unprais'd the vest and veil divine, which wandering foliage and which flowers intertwine. Far above the rest, the royal dame, already doom'd to love disastrous flame, with eyes insatiate and tumultuous joy, beholds the presents and admires the boy. The guileful god about the hero long with children's play and false embraces hung. Then sought the queen; she took him to her arms with greedy pleasure, and devour'd his charms. Unhappy Dido little thought what guest, how dire a god she drew so near her breast. But he, not mindless of his mother's pray'r, works in the pliant bosom of the fair, and molds her heart anew, and blots her former care, and dead is to the living love resign'd, and all Aeneas enters in her mind. Now, when the rage of hunger was appeas'd, the meat remov'd, and every guest was pleas'd, the golden bowls with sparkling wine are crown'd, and thro' the palace cheerful cries resound. From gilded roofs depending lamps display nocturnal beams that emulate the day. A golden bowl that shone with gems divine, the queen commanded to be crown'd with wine. That bowl that Belus us'd in all the Tyrian line. Then, silence thro' the hall proclaim'd, she spoke: "O hospitable Jove, we thus invoke With solemn rites thy sacred name and power. Bless to both nations this auspicious hour. So may the Trojan and the Tyrian line In lasting concord from this day combine. Thou, Bacchus, god of joys and friendly cheer, And gracious Juno, both be present here. And you, my lords of Tyre, your vows address To heav'n with mine, to ratify the peace." The goblet then she took, with nectar crown'd, Sprinkling the first libations on the ground, and rais'd it to her mouth with sober grace. Then sipping, offer'd to the next to place. 'Twas Bitias whom she call'd, a thirsty soul; He took the challenge, and embrac'd the bowl. With pleasure swill'd the gold, nor ceas'd to draw, Till he the bottom of the brimmer saw. The goblet goes around. Iopus brought his golden lyre, and sung what ancient Atlas taught. The various labours of the wandering moon, and whence proceeds th' eclipses of the sun. The original of man and beast, and whence the rain arise, and fires their warmth dispense, and fix'd and erring stars dispose their influence. What shakes the earth? What cause delays the summer night, and shortens winter days? With peals of shouts the Tyrians praise the song. Those peals are echoed by the Trojan throng. The unhappy queen with talk prolong'd the night, And drank large draughts of love with vast delight. Of Priam much enquir'd, of Hector more, Then ask'd what arms the swarthy Menon wore, What troops he landed on the Trojan shore. The steeds of Diomed varied the discourse, And fierce Achilles with his matchless force. At length, as fate and her ill stars requir'd, To hear the series of the war desir'd, "Relate at large, my godlike guest," she said, "The Grecian stratagems, the town betray'd, The fatal issue of so long a war. Your flight, your wanderings, and your woes declare. For, since on every sea, on every coast, Your men have been distress'd, your navy toss'd, 7 times the sun has either tropic view'd, The winter banish'd, and the spring renew'd." End of Book 1. Recording by Joseph Early, Falls Church, Virginia. Monarch, blinded by desire of wealth, With steel invades his brother's life by stealth. Before the sacred altar made him bleed, And long from her conceal'd the cruel deed. Some tale, some new pretence he daily coin'd, To soothe his sister, and delude her mind. At last, in dead of night, the ghost appears of her unhappy lord. The spectre stares, and, with erected eyes, his bloody bosom bares. The cruel altars and his fate he tells, and the dire secret of his house reveals. Then warns the widow, with her household gods, to seek a refuge in remote abodes. Last, to support her in so long a way, he shows her where his hidden treasure lay. Admonish'd thus, and seiz'd with mortal fright, the queen provides companions of her flight. They meet, and all combine to leave the state, who hate the tyrant, or who fear his hate. They seize a fleet, while wretched mortals call, and offer'd victims at your altars fall. I dare not, she replied, assume the name of goddess, or celestial honours claim; for Tyrian virgins bows and quivers bear, and purple buskins o'er their ankles wear. No, gentle youth, in Libyan lands you are, a people rude in peace and rough in war. The rising city, which from far you see, is Carthage, an Tyrian colony. Phoenician Dido rules the growing state, who fled from Tyre to shun her brother's hate. Great were her wrongs, her story full of fate, which I will sum in short. Sichaeus, known for wealth, and brother to the Punic throne, possess'd fair Dido's bed, and either heart at once was wounded with an equal dart. Her father gave her, yet a spotless maid, Pygmalion, then the Tyrian scepter sway'd, one who condemn'd divine and human law. Then strife ensued, and cursed gold the cause. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joseph Early. The Aeneid by Publius Virgilius Maro. Translated by John Dryden. Book 1. A Fateful Haven. Part 2. Thus Venus. Thus her son replied again: None of your sisters have we seen or heard, O virgin, or what other name you bear above that style. O more than mortal fair, your voice and mien celestial birth betray. If, as you seem, the daughter of the day, or one at least of chaste Diana's train, let not an humble suppliant sue in vain, but tell a stranger, long in tempest tossed, what earth we tread, and who commands the coast. Then on your name shall seas by various tempests tossed. At length we landed on your Libyan coast. The good Aeneas I am call'd, a name, while fortune favour'd, not unknown to fame. My household gods, companions of my woes, with pious care I rescued from our foes. To fruitful Italy my course was bent, and from the King of Heav'n is my descent. With twice 10 sails I cross'd the Phrygian sea, Fate and my mother goddess led my way. Scarce 7 the thin remainders of my fate, from storms preserv'd, within your harbour meet. Myself distress'd, an exile and unknown, debarr'd from Europe and from Asia thrown, in Libyan deserts wander thus alone. His tender parent could no longer bear, but interposing, sought to soothe his care. Whoe'er you are, not unbelov'd by Heav'n, since on our friendly shore your ships are driven, have courage, to the gods permit the rest, and to the which ready rigg'd they find, Nor is Pygmalion's treasure left behind; the vessels, heavy laden, put to sea. With prosperous winds a woman leads the way. I know not if by stress of weather driven, Or was their fatal course dispos'd by Heav'n. At last they landed, where from far your eyes May view the turrets of new Carthage rise. There bought a space of ground, which Brysa call'd from the bull's hide, they first inclos'd and wall'd. But whence are you? What country claims your birth? What seek you, strangers, on our Libyan earth? To whom, with sorrow streaming from his eyes, And deeply sighing, thus her son replies: "Could you with patience hear, or I relate, O nymph, the tedious annals of our fate, Thro' such a train of woes if I should run, The day would sooner than the tale be done. From ancient Troy, by force expell'd, we came, If you by chance have heard the Trojan name, On various